In this video, we will be looking at how we're going to go and develop a data-driven application using SQLite3 in Python, and also use an app to go and actually open and create the database itself called as DBBrowser for SQLite. So in this DBBrowser SQLite, the environment looks something similar to this. You can actually go and create your tables. You can go and create your database itself. You can add records to your table. You can delete records to your table. And then you can go and set the PK-FK relationships, that is the primary key and the foreign key relationships, everything here by going and executing your SQL statements from here. You can do that from outside this environment using the Python code as well. But when it comes to application level, manipulation of the database and data records can be done through Python. But for setting up the tables, for setting up your database, and for setting up your relationships, you can go and conveniently do this from the DBBrowser for SQLite. So without no further delay, what I'm going to do is first I'm going to show you the simple tables that I have created. The best part of it is this database will be available to the viewers. They can actually use this database and manipulate it to their needs. So for example, I'm going to create a student login system here in this video, but you could go and modify it to employee login system, or you can go and modify it to whatever a library system or anything. But you can basically, the most important part of how the record is manipulated, how the records are entered into the tables, how the records are entered by adhering to the PK-FK relationship, that is the primary key and foreign key relationship. So I'll be covering that step by step. The first thing that I'm going to talk to you in this video is about the database DBBrowser for SQLite itself. So I'm going to go here and open the database that I've created. So it is sitting, I just go navigate to the folder in which it's sitting, and it is sitting in the Python database here. So I just go and open that. It says student sign on DB. I'll just go select that and open it. And since I said execute SQL, it is at the point there. If I'm going to go to the database structure, I got the most important tables in this are the detentions. Yeah, student sign on database detention classification is one of the tables, and the student detentions is another table, and the student personal is another table. So these are the three tables, and the structure is quite visible there. So first one is let's look at the student personal, where a student ID is entered. It said integer, not null, and primary key. Interesting part of it is when you start entering the data, either through the DB browser or through Python, for this particular field, which is an integer field, which is also, if you see, there is a key there, is a primary key, it automatically creates a ID for the student. Then you go and enter the first name, last name, address of the student, and then the class. That's one of the main tables. So you see that's the primary key here. And then if you go and look into let's say here, you could go actually and right click and then modify table. When you say modify table here, luckily you get here the information. This particular table is created, student personal is created with the ID integer, not null, unique. So which means it's always going to be unique. So each time when you create a new record, it automatically creates a unique number there, assigns a unique ID. So first names can repeat, the last name can repeat, address can repeat. So because there can be two students from the same address, there can be two people with the same name, and there can be several students in a class. So all of that, that's the reason why the primary key is the ID here. So if you wanted to look at how the table is created, that is how the table is created. So now the data types are already given here. So it's an integer, text, simple, right? And PK is ticked in here, which is a primary key, and then NN, which stands for not null, simple and easy. So I'm just going to go close that particular window there, and that's okay. And you go back here. Don't worry about that part there, and you just go here. That's your student personal. That's clear. Now, detention point classification. Yeah, detentions classification is, again, I'm going to go into the right click, and then I'm going to say here modify table. So if I'm going to go modify the table here, create table, detention, classification, and the points are integer here. The points are going to be the primary key. The points are going to be the primary key. Okay, so through the points, you will be able to determine what would be the consequences. So if the student has acquired 0 points, which means no consequences, 1 point, there's apparently some consequence, 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, and 6 points, there are apparently some consequences. So that is, again, based on that, the primary key is actually the point. So that is another table here. So I'm going to go quickly close that one there. Just say, okay, that's fine. Then now, the student detentions here, modify table, look here. This is where there are no primary keys involved here, but there are, if you see, 2 foreign keys, foreign key ID, reference student personal. So from student personal here, that is the foreign key linked to the ID. Then again, foreign key that sits in the detention classification, which is the detention points. Again, detention classification, detention points is the foreign key here. And yeah, so I'll go back into that, student detentions, and then modify table. Yep, there we go. And then that is coming from detention classification points, which is the primary key in that particular table. So the PK-FK relationship is already established. Now let's go and actually have a look at the look at the browse data tab. So you can go to any of those say tables. So for example, the first one is the student personal. This is what I was talking about. In the student personal, when you look at, none of the student ID would repeat. So it starts from 3, 4, 7, 8, 7, 9, 8, 0, 8, 1, 8, 2, 8, 3. Now I'm going to go here, click here, press the tab. I won't do anything. I'll just press the tab. It has automatically given me the ID 383484. Now I can go and fill in the other information there. I'm going to go quickly actually delete this particular record. Hit delete and say push OK. So completely get rid of that. Let's say here that's gone. Okay, so these are the records that are sitting. So the idea is we're going to go and manipulate these records through an app designed in Python. And then, so this database would be at the back end. The front end would be your app that you have designed in Python. So for which you would be using a couple of modules. We'll go talk about that later eventually, but this is the first part that you need to be understanding. Second thing is, we're looking at this another table, the detention classification. As I told you, the points. If it's going to be 1 point, that would be the consequence, and the location, and the duration, and the time. So 2 points, 3 points, 4 points. So the student has accumulated 6 points. How do you determine what those points are based on? Is another interesting question. Who gets 6 points? Who gets 4 points? Who gets 3 points, 2 points? This is where our program comes into the picture. This is where the application programming itself comes into the picture. Based on the amount of time this particular student is going to be late, those points will be determined, right? So, and then those points will be entered into the student's detention table. So let's go back into that. I'll go and show you that students detention table. So, but this is only the detention detention classification. So now when you go into, but this is the points in this table is your primary key. The admin anytime can go and add a new classification. If the admin wanted to, they can go and add 7.7 blah 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 consequence at this particular location, right? So let's go in here and start looking at the students detention table. This is where the foreign keys come into picture. There are two foreign keys here. They can repeat, yeah, and say the detention points. This particular student here, 348034. So this is just a test that I was making, and apparently it did post an error. So I'll just get rid of that particular record there. So just go delete it. So you don't have to go and write a SQL statement to go and delete that particular record. Simply go select it and delete it. That's the best part of the DBBrowser for SQLite. But if you wanted to go delete a record through the program, you would be writing a SQL statement for that. Okay, so now here, this is repeating. This student had been arriving late for quite a few time now. When the student signed in, it was only 0 here, which means the student never arrived late, and the detention points was 0. But in this case, on this particular date, so look here, I would like to draw your attention to one particular thing here. So first of all, I'm going to go back into the database structure. When you look at the database structure, let's look at the student detentions. See, the ID is integer and sign-in time is BLOB, which means literally whatever the text is given, it takes it. But how is the text? There's a particular format. If you observe, the text is entered into the particular table. Let's go back to the table and have a look at the browse data. Let's see that. So the day comes first, the month comes second. So on the 7th of 11th, 2020, the student signs in at 3:44:31. That's like 6 hours away, 6 hours from the actual login time. But it said late in minutes is only 0. By then, actually, I haven't coded the program itself. So I was just testing to just enter the points. But later on, in my later trials, what I did was I programmed this bit. It goes and calculates how many minutes the student was late from 9:05. 9:05 is the time of sign-in. So from 9:05, that particular student is late by 4 hours 6 minutes, 406 minutes, and he has accumulated the detention points 6. How did that go and assign that? We will have to go back into the program and look at that. So these are the things that I would want you to understand when it comes to the database. So that's pretty simple and easy. So you go back to the database structure, 3 tables at this stage: detention, classification, and 1 primary key. The others are just the usual fields that where you wanted to go and put the data in. And then there's another one here, student personal, 1 primary key, which is your ID and other relevant information. And here 2 foreign keys. One is the ID, another is the detention points, and sign-in time is blob, but then it can take any information, any data that you wanted to put in. You can use your encryption techniques that can be the encryption techniques through your algorithmic techniques, and then encrypt the data inside those tables. And then when you retrieve the data from those tables, you can go and decrypt it. So it's entirely up to you, but if you're going to put in some sensitive information into it. So, but remember, this is only SQLite, so things work in a very subtle way with SQLite. So that's pretty much it about your database administration. So the following session that I'm going to be talking about would be actually about the program itself and how it goes and manipulates. There'll be one problem. that when you are actually opening the idle Python and coding your application, sometimes when it's going to go and write into the table, it says the database is locked. Yeah, so I have come across people who keep trying for a longer time. They wouldn't have a clue of why it says the database is locked, and there's no problem at all with actual code itself. The actual code was working before, but now it's not working. One thing is you got to remember is that your DB browser for SQLite would be open at the time. So it's the same data table and same database opened by two different applications. So then if it's opened by DB browser, Python would not be able to access it. Yep. So, and the easiest way is to go and close the DB browser and perform whatever other actions that you wanted to perform. And then you could go and again open the DB browser and then check it. And your data updation will take place. I'm just going to leave this DB browser open now. I'm simply going to go and load the program. So I am going to make this DB browser program, DB browser, the database file itself available to you, but you must have DB browser installed on your computer to open this. Now you can use this, you can manipulate it, you can change the name of the fields, and then make it suitable for your own application. So now let's go into the coding itself. So here I go and open idle Python 3. I got like 3.8. These are the older versions installed on my computer. So I'm going to go into 3.8 point blah blah blah, the 32-bit one. So it went and opened it. I'm going to go and open my program itself. File, open. This is the most simplest of the programs that's being written. Yet it runs into several codes. But the most important bits are there. You can go and expand your idea based on this and perform many other actions. I'm going to make this .py file available to you. You can use it and you can manipulate it to your needs and make changes to it. All right, so let's go into this. So it is sitting in my D drive. Under D drive, it's sitting in Python database. The latest one was, I'm going to go and make all the three files. The first one, student sign-on system, and version 2, student sign-on system. The latest one being version 3, student sign-on system.py, and then open it. So there we go. Woohoo! That's your program. That's it. Just those many lines of codes. No, joking. So it runs all the way up to there. Trust me, this is only the basic part of manipulation covered so far, right? There's a huge, you can go and add so many features. There are only very few features that are there inside this program that you can go and actually say add to your own program. You can do many things, but this is, having said that, this is a functional system that's working. Now I wanted to, I'm so excited to go and show you how the system itself is going to go and work. So there are going to be two areas. One is the admin, another is the student section. So let's say I'm going to go run this. I'll say run module. So it's running it. That's my shell. And see here, it said connection successful with my database. And then here it goes and says student login system, admin, student. I'm just a student. I'm going to go hit S on my keyboard, S, and it says, okay, running student menu. So O is for sign on, R is for my report. I want to go and sign on here. Oh, and it asks me enter your ID here. I'll try to remember one of those IDs that I had been always continuously working with, 3, 4, 7, 8. And then I hit enter here, and it says name, blah, 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 class. I don't know if that name matches with anybody. It's completely fictional. So sign on date, it's showing me 8/11/2020. See, sign on time, it's showing me like 5/12/6. The computer always takes the 24-hour format, so algorithmically I manipulated to show that as 5:12 p.m. I could always go and show that as PM or AM there if I wanted to. Press Y to sign on and N to exit. I'm going to at this stage say Y and sign in, and let's see what happens. Is it stuck? Yeah, I think it's stuck. SQLite or database is locked. Didn't I tell you this problem exists? I was just worried about why it is not working. It said SQLite operations error. Thank goodness that this error actually popped up while I'm doing this video, because it tells you what exactly is happening here. I'm trying to write data into the database, but again, I have opened it with the DBBrowser. First, I'll go and close this. Yep, I'll just save the changes. I'll go close the shell. Only if I close the shell, that window will close. I'm going to go run it now. Run it. What a classic example. So I'm going to go here now, hit S here, and then I'm going to go and sign on. I'm going to say here, O is for sign on, 3, 4, 7, 8. None of that information actually is belong to anybody. So I'm just going to go enter that. That's the information. 5 hours, 14 minutes, 11 seconds. Press Y to sign on and then to exit. I hit Y there, and then it said record found. When you enter that student number there, it actually validates in the main database of the student personnel if actually that student exists. Okay, I'm going to go again, retry that, say O, enter your ID here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We saw in the database previously that that particular record never existed. I'll say enter, student does not exist. Okay, so I'll just hit any key. It'll take me to the main menu of signing on. Now, I want to go and run a report. So I'll say, I'm going to again do the same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I press enter, student does not exist. I'll press the space bar, and again I'll say R to run the report. This time I'm going to enter the number 3, 4, 7, 8 for that particular student, hit enter. That particular student, hey, Cat Bull, your late records are your student number and your date of the day you're late, and then your points accumulated, and also the time and the points, right? So here I'm going to go back to my, sorry, I was getting a call. I'll just say here M and go to the main menu. Everything disappeared, and then it tells me O is for sign on, R is for my report. I'll say again M. It takes me to admin or student. Simple. Now again, I'll go to the admin. What are the features? You can go and add range of features of what you wanted, how you wanted to manipulate, delete a record, or modify a record, or add a record. For administration, I created only one particular feature, which is my new student. I'm going to create a new student. When I'm going to enter the new student here, the first, so I'm going to say James, and then press enter, and say Bond, press enter. Student address is 1 North Avenue, NY, enter, and then student class is still in grade 8C, right? Enter. It says new student successfully entered. Did you notice one thing? I never entered any student number for that particular student because it is auto-generated. So let's go back into now, open the database itself, open the table, and actually look at the table if it actually has created this particular data or not. Before that, I'm going to hit M. At any point of time when you wanted to, if you wanted to escape this app, you just have to press escape. Yeah, if you want to close it, you just go press escape. It's closed. I'm going to close this window here now, and then minimize this part here and go back into my DBbrowser. So when I go and open up my DBbrowser here and open the database here, which is sitting in my D drive here, and that is sitting in the Python database. Student sign on, so student personal. When I go here browse data, student personal. You see that that's my last student, James Mr. Bond, and 1 North Avenue, New York, 86. There you go. And then that number there is auto-generated. Okay, so now if I go and enter this number there, 3484, it actually shows me the record. But now if I enter any other number other than these numbers here, it says student not found. I'm going to go here, although it's open, I'm going to just say run this module here, and I'm going to again go into the A, which is admin. I've created only 2 features here. One is a new student, another is a group report. When I hit G here, for all the students, it's just going to go and show me the student last late records are 3480 was late on that day, 3478 that particular day was late at that particular time, and then the number of minutes the student was late. Here you see the number of minutes is 494 minutes created. The new record created was 811 here on the 8th of 11th, and the points are allocated as 6, right? So it pulls up all the records from there. When I hit M here, it disappears. Yep. Again, I'm going to go M, and then if you want to go into the new student or group report, it goes and generates. Sorry, there's one thing that I wanted to go and tell you. I wanted to generate the group report. It's not asking me to hit M here because it is stuck there to actually get a key strike from me. So I can go and hit any key here. So I hit any key. Now if I hit M, it gives me this menu here. And again, if I'm going to hit M, it gives me the main menu, either admin or the student. So those are the 2 features that were sitting in admin. Those are the 2 features that were sitting in the student. How is that accomplished? This is the 3rd section of the video, which talks about how all of this is accomplished in that particular program. You would spend more time looking at those codes, understanding the techniques that are being involved, understand the techniques that are being employed to achieve this particular task. At the same time, what I'm going to do here is, you also see here there are some records printed. For my convenience, what I did is I used a print command to see how the records are printing. So that's why it's showing me. So I can get rid of them by just removing the print command from my code. I'm going to go close this one now here. I'll just say the program is still running. Do you want to kill it? I'll actually say cancel, go back here. I can press escape anytime and then close the app, and then I can go and close those. So then it doesn't give me that dialog box. All right. So what is there in this? A few parts are actually repeated. A few parts are actually written with new code. So let's go and split them into different sections. And so the first one here, I'm using Pygame functions for my graphic, for opening the graphics window, for setting up the background, for setting up the dimensions for the window itself, and then for showing the labels, for showing the sprites. For all of those, I'm using the Pygame functions. Import SQLite3. This is where if I wanted to go and send the SQLite commands, SQL commands, and SQL syntaxes. That's why to go and manipulate my databases, I use the SQLite3. Now, the detention part mainly plays on the date and time to determine the number of minutes. Based on the number of minutes is your points allocated. So the date and time at which the student signs on. So for which I need another module called as date and time. So I got the Pygame functions, I got the SQLite, and I got the date and time. These are the 3 external modules that are required for this program here. So that's the login date, date and time dot today. It captures the date. What does it capture? From this particular date time dot today. So it takes date time dot day. Yeah, it takes the month, it takes the year. So that's the login date. Yeah, login date is a variable. So you can get the day out of this, you can get the month out of it, you can get the year out of it, you can get the hour out of it, you can get the minutes out of it, you can get the seconds out of this. So if I say here login date dot day, it captures 8. Login date dot month, it captures 11. Login date dot year, it captures 2020. Login hours is it takes the hour. Here, if you see, I put a mod function there. So this is where you got to know your operators. So when you put the mod function there, it removes 12 hours out of it and then only keeps the rest of it. For example, if the system time, if I say login date dot hour, it scans in at 17. Right, in place of 17, if I wanted to get only 5, so it removes the 12 and then gets only 5 by using the mod function. So say login minutes and then level of detention. So I'm gonna, this is where I put a little algorithm here to go and calculate the level. I said I'm gonna achieve the level algorithmically. So login date hour equal to 9 if it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and then the login date minute. Login date is actually the variable. Okay, that's the variable here. Login date dot minute is greater than 5, so which means the student is logging in after 9 o'clock, 9:05. So the consequence, if he's late by 5 minutes, it's level 1. If he's late by 10 minutes, the level 2. If he's late by say 15 minutes, it's level 3. If he is late by 25 minutes or so, it will be, yep, 25 minutes is level 4. If he is late more than 30 minutes, he gets level 5. And if he is late then 10 o'clock in the morning, it's level 6. So otherwise, there's no level allocated to that particular, otherwise the level stands to 0. So the level is not manipulated here. And late in minutes stands to 0. So the student is practically not late. So he won't be allocated with any detention. So here, what we did is how many hours this person is late. Late login date dot hour minus 9. Whatever the hour, say for example, if it is if the student signs on at 10 o'clock, minus 9 is he's late by 1 hour. That's why it's going to show me how many hours he's going to be late. Okay, and if it's less than 10, it's going to allocate 0 here. And this is where I'm trying to actually calculate the number of minutes. Yep, and less than 10. Say if late in minutes is less than 10, late in minutes 0 plus some, it's going to say string of minutes, LMI. So I'm going to calculate the number of minutes he's late. All right. So that's what I'm trying to do at that particular stage. Now, so the hour is less than 10, the minutes is less than 10, and then the seconds is less than 10, right? The screen size is set to 600 by 500, which is 600 is the width and 500 is the height. Background, I got the app background. I got all of this repository here. So these are the images that I would be loading. That's my app background. These are my sprite, say admin sprite, my student sprite, and then main menu, new student registration, group report. See, I didn't complete the functionality for delete the student and edit the student and delete report. That's again, if I wanted to expand more on my program, depends upon my time, I can go and do that. So I'm going to leave that alone. So I'm not going to cover all of this. I have already covered these parts in my previous videos when I've used the Pygame functions to actually create the games. If you wanted to go back to those videos on the channel, you can go and watch those and you can go and figure out what does that mean, like how you move the sprites, how you create the sprite, how you show the sprite, how you hide the sprite. All of that part is only going to is used only for showing the interface. This is the main part of it. I created a variable here called as connection SQLite3.connect. If I say SQLite3.connect without importing SQLite3, it makes no sense to Python. and then that module should be available for you. Any version greater than 3.5 in Python, it automatically has it. So when I said here, it goes and establish the connection. See the forward slash that's being used here. So whatever the path of your database, you're going to use the forward slash and you can put it there, and see is connection.cursor, that it's going to give you as though there's a cursor there, and C dot, you can say execute C dot, whatever you wanted to, whatever the command you wanted to do, like select or delete, whatever you wanted to, whatever the SQL command you wanted to give. So if that goes without any problem, it prints connection successful. It kept doing it for us. So this is again just the menu. This is just the menu, the main menu. It goes and hides all the sprites, and then it shows whatever the sprites that are required. It only shows 2 sprites here. The first one here is down the bottom is your main menu. So when the main menu runs, this is where is your main menu function. So the main menu function, you got here, there's another variable called choice here. Somewhere I created choice, and that the choice is null here. And then I said, if you're using that in your main menu, you got to declare that as global, that you should be able to use that here in this particular function. If you don't declare it as global, that particular variable becomes local to that particular function. So hide sprite, ns, gr, mm, so, mr, you'll see all of these are here. Yep. So all of those sprites are here, but yeah, there are only 2 sprites that we wanted to show, that is student and admin. Char is equal to chr. It's going to get the character value of the particular keystroke that you're going to put in, and it says wait press. Simple. So if you're going to go here, and for the choice is A, which is for admin, yeah, lowercase a, and you can also go and add one more thing here, and, or we can say actually not and or, oops, choice choice equal to and capital A. Here you can do the same thing, or choice equal to capital S. So either of that, what happens? Okay, if it is going to be A, running administration menu, this is only for our reference, and the shell level, it gives that information. Hide sprite, student, and admin, it runs the admin function. If you're going to enter the student, it says this is only for our information. At the shell level, it says running student menu. You can get rid of that. Your app should be working absolutely fine. That's for your information. So hide sprite, student, admin, it runs the student. How simple is that? How organized are those functions they're setting? So when you run the admin function loads. If you run the student function loads. Simple. Okay, when you run the admin function, there are 2 choices. So when it goes and shows you the sprites, new student, and then I wanted the group report, and then for the main menu at the bottom. So it says enter your choice, wait press. So if you enter, if your choice is M, which is your main menu, I couldn't be bothered to go and put the capital M there. If you wanted to modify that, feel free to go and do that, and then it breaks out and it comes out to the main menu, right? So which means if it goes to the main menu, which means it'll take you back to this particular function here. Okay, cool. So it breaks. If the choice is equal to new student, if I'm going to go and enter the new student, so but I don't know why I could be bothered this time to go and put a new student, capital N here, and print the choice. So when you press N here, hide sprite, new student, and the group report, it now actually goes and creates a text box, which is again Pygame functions part of it, and then asks you to enter the first name. What are all those parameters? You can go get that information from the Pygame functions file itself. I have already provided that file in my previous videos of how to use Pygame functions. But just quickly, I'll go and actually explain that to you. 130 is the X, 105 is the Y, and 300 is apparently 300 would be the width of it, and enter the name here, and 22 and 22. So those parameters, if you go and look on your make text box, I'll just go back and open it so that I will go and explain to you what that means. It is sitting in my D and in my Python. It should be called as Pygame functions. My bad. I could have explained this. I couldn't be bothered to go and explain this because it goes imperative that you already knew this Pygame functions. There we go. And then open up that functions there. Here, I'll just go say text box. Right. So text box, what are the parameters? We'll just go and start looking at the text box. This is what is the main, this is the heart for the Pygame functions to make it work. Again, you could have, this Pygame functions module works based on the Pygame that you actually have installed. Let's go back to the Pygame functions. Like the text box. Yep, new text box. Yep, sorry. So that is the X position, Y position, the width of the text box. Yep, and the max length and the font size. Right? So those are the parameter. So you can give the text there, the X position, the Y position, that is the width. Okay, so then again, the max length and the font size. Mostly the width and the max length should match, but sometimes it's up to you. You want it to show it like 300 characters or 200 characters, but you wanted to enter only 20 to 25 characters. It's entirely up to you. So that's about it. Now, I'm going to go close that. It just went and took some time out. Okay, so if you wanted to go back and start looking at that module there, you can, but we are only talking about the user interface here. But we have to go and look into the mechanism of what exactly happening and how it's pushing the data in. So as soon as you entered those values, see here, show text box as first, that is your text box here. You got to go capture that information from there into a memory variable. So F name, yep, student name, text box input, and then hide text box, that's why it hides it, last name, right? And then input S last, that's coming from here, and then S address is coming from S address here. The address that you entered went into this particular variable, and S class entered in this particular text box goes and sits in here, hide the particular text box. SQL now equal to insert into student personal, that's the table. How does it know that is the table? Because that's the table that is sitting in the database. First name, last name, address, class, and you put values. Where are those values coming from? All 4 question marks there, and then you're going to say record equal to F name, L name, S name, S class. F name is the first name, last name, L name, S address, student class. So F name, first name, last name, student address, S class. C dot execute, and then opens the function SQL and the record. So these are the 2 parameters sent into this function here. When you execute it, it goes and puts the record into the table, and your connection will, you say commit, and that's logged in. Now, make label, new student record successfully updated. So that's about it. That's about it. Then you take a wait press and you come out. Say same thing for generating. So if you hit G or capital G, it goes and does the same thing. See here, this time it goes and C dot execute select star, which means all the records from student detention where detention points are greater than 0. So which means if the detention points is 0, there's no point in actually showing those records because the student never received a detention. Say admin staff, our teacher wanted to chase those students who are late to the school. So they go run this query there. So it brings out all the students who are late to the school more than 0 minutes, and then it shows the list of those students, and it can be printed, and the teachers can go and talk to them, or whatever the consequences to be given can be given. So that's about it, and that's the part of it. So now here comes one smart part of it. So when you say here, you created a new variable rows1, c.fetch all the records will go into rows1, and there's a little, you see here, the row actually is treated as the fields. For row in rows1, you form a little for loop there, n equal to integer of row of 0. This is where the first particular field is scanned in. Yeah. So then it goes and student late. Say here it goes and says it creates new label student late, student records. I don't know why. I'll just get rid of that. Late student records, and then it gives a little title on the top. Here I use the same, see, look here, I use the same loop here, and then I want you to go and look at that y val is set to 140. So 140 is like it goes from 0 to 140, it goes down up to all the way up to 600. So at 140 it goes and prints the first row. Again, I increase it by 30 here. Y value is increased by 30. Again, the next record is scanned because it says J is str of row, because we are in the loop. Next row, next row, next row, until all the rows are completed. It goes and shows that particular record. So all the records are displayed now. Wait, press. So you go and hit any key. After you already looked at the records, you wanted to go back to do what you wanted to. Then when you hit the space or whatever, look here, late student records. I wanted to go copy exactly the same thing here, Control C. I put the same thing here. Why am I printing that again? I'm printing the same thing here. And I'm putting, and again, I'm reinitiating that value to 140, initializing it. And then I'm using the same loop here. The reason, here it shows all the records, here it wipes all the records. How is it wiping all the records? Look at that, light blue is the color. That's the color of my background. Light blue is the color. I have set the background even for the text, so which means it completely wipes out everything there. So whatever you printed here from here to here will get wiped out here. So this is an admin. We are looking at the G to generate the report. I'll just go run it and show it to you now. Run module. Okay, so it's going to run it. I don't know if it's going to work. It should work because we're not writing anything. Although I have opened the DBBrowser. I'm going to go run this now here. Admin and then group report. I hit group report. Look at that. Late student records. These are the students who are late because they accumulated 406 minutes, 420 minutes, 494 minutes. They're at the level 6. Yeah, so if I go and test it from 9 o'clock in the morning, 9, 5 to 10, then I will be getting different minutes and different levels. All right, so I couldn't be bothered to go and do that at that particular time. So you can actually do it because I'm going to give you the source codes for you to test it. Now, what I said, remember this bunch of codes here? I want to draw. So now this bunch of codes are executed. Okay, now it's stuck. It's waiting here. K equal to wait press. Once I hit it, it goes and wipes out all of those records. You go hit the key, gone. So that bunch of codes got executed, and then again it says wait press here, and I can go back here to my main menu. I hit main menu, new student, or you're going to go in the group report. That's your admin again. You go hit M, it goes either admin or it goes student. So we looked at the admin part of it. Now we're going to look at the student part of it. So what happens when the student goes and uses the same app? So let's say, for example, it runs the main menu. It shows the student sprite and the admin sprite, and it's waiting for the choice, and the choice was pressed as student, S or S, small s or capital S, and then it goes and runs the student function here. So that's the student function. You go back here, the student function, you get two choices there. Just sign on with O, remember, or just check your own personal record. So in that case there, when the admin runs the query, admin could go and selects all the records where the late is greater than greater than 1 minute, right? So, but the student, when runs the query, will be based on the validation of that particular student number. So when you enter that particular student number, it confirms if you're that student, and then it signs you on. Or if you enter the student number, it confirms if you're that particular student, and then runs a query and selects the number of records that you are late, you're personally late. So let's go look into that, and then we're pretty much done with this particular app. So when you run it, it says, say, main menu as usual. So when you press M, it takes you to the main menu. If you go to the O, couldn't be bothered to go and put again capital O, you can go and add capital O or whatever you wanted to, whatever the key strike you wanted to give there. So it goes and says, enter your ID here. This is the most important part. So if you enter the ID there, say, which is not existent inside the database or in the data table, which is your student personal. So you entered in here, it goes and checks if the particular student is there. When you run the row, okay, from that student personal, so it scans the student, say the student row of 0. So what does that row of 0 means? I'll show you. This is student personal, row of 0, row of 1 is first name, row of 2 is the say the last name, row of 3 is your address, row of 4 is your class. So row of O, it goes, or the 0, it goes and checks in here. So that particular end value goes and sits, that particular value goes and sits in here, right? So if n equal to integer of enter student ID. Student ID here is again a text box, remember? So you convert it into integer. I'm not going to go into the fundamentals of it because you're going to go, so when you enter it, it will be characters or it will be text, but when you convert it into integer, it has to be number. Why it has to be converted into integer? To check, because this value here, we have given it as integer, right? In your database, when you were creating your tables, you have given the particular field, you allocated it as an integer type. A value goes in there. So when you go check that, if it matches, right, show label, it goes and shows the first name, it goes and shows the class, and it shows the sign-on time, and then it goes and shows the sign-on date and time. Press Y for signing in. So in this case here, if you go press Y, what happens? Here, log date is login data is, I created the whole entire string, putting them together. Remember the blob kind of a data type we have assigned. So the date on which you go and the date and time at which you go and sign and say, where is that? The student detentions. That's what I'm talking about, the sign in time. Okay, so I am trying to put all of that data in here. Yeah, and then it goes and if I press S, insert into student detention ID, sign in time, minutes, detention points, and value. Where are they coming from? record. So record is the student number, S number, which is captured from there. And again, where's the login data is assigned from here. Again, what is this? Login date, login minutes, login month, login year, login hour, login minutes, login seconds. Where are they all? They're all sitting here right on top. Did I use global? Should have. Yeah. Anyway, so it went and put all of them in there. Snum is integer of row of 0, so that's your student number. S class is your student class. All of that, it goes into this and then level, and it executes that particular information, goes and sits into your student detentions table. So once it does that, again, if it is no, it does not do any of that, just exits. Yeah. So but then if I enter any number 1, 2, 3, 4 at the student number, here it goes in. Yep. Student does not simply exist because enter sit does not match in here. Yeah. So this is where you're checking the row of rows. Okay. So when you select where ID equal to, so it goes and looks for that particular record in the main database. So when you entered 1, 2, 3, 4 here, it will not fetch any record. When it does not fetch any record, nothing will go into N. Right? Say, for example, if I say enter, say it says enter your ID here, 1, 2, 3, 4. When I entered 1, 2, 3, 4, it select from student personal where ID is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Where is 1, 2, 3, 4 here? Nothing. So it goes back here, and rows equal to C fetch all, nothing will be fetched. Although it says fetch all, it says fetch not all the, it fetches all the records and also all the fields. But say, for example, if I entered 3478, it goes and fetches ID, sign-in time, late minutes, detention points. All the 4 of those fields will be fetched and all the records. But see, there's only one record when it comes to, because this is student detention, we've got to go back to student personal. See, there's only one record that will be fetched. And this number here goes and sits into the variable N. But if I enter 1, 2, 3, 4, that N will be not matching to the number that we entered. So there's no data that's matching to that. So for the enter state. So then what happens here? It simply goes and says, hey, look, that particular student never existed. That's how it executes that. So I entered that rows equals to fetch all. I got the N. Yep, integer, none fetched. So when none is fetched, it says student does not exist simply and comes back. And if you want to get the student record, again the same thing. It enters, you enter it, you look for this, you enter your student ID here, and then it looks for execute, fetch it, and if it is there, you will find the record. If the record is found, it's altogether a different thing. But if the record is not found, it goes and says simply the student does not exist. If the student exists, here select from student detention. See, the table is student detentions here. So from the student detention, but here it was a student personal. So student detentions, what happens when you enter the data? When you enter that particular student number, it goes and looks for the student detentions here. And from the student detention, say for example, most of the time, I don't know why, I had been really cruel to this child here, 3478. I entered only that data there. If I go and enter that 3478, it's going to fetch me all the records from here, because that's how I've written that particular codes here. So it gets that, again, the same mechanism that I've shown here. It fetches the records and it shows, yeah, creates this. I put the Y value here as 140. So record 1, record 2, record 3, record 4. will be shown here, and the y value keeps increasing. It waits for the wait press. When I press the space, see, it goes and changes it to light blue background and then erases everything. A very simple data-driven application using Python and SQLite3 module, importing the date and time module and the Pygame functions. I'm going to go run this again, run the module. I'm going to run the module here as an administrator. I'll run the administrator, new student, okay, say Ben, and then Ross, and then student address is 2000 Sydney Street, NY Street, CA, enter student class 9B, okay, and then I'll just say enter. Once I enter it, it says new student successfully entered, and then I don't know, for some strange reason it never gave us no error. Sometimes it gives and sometimes it does not. Maybe that particular table is not open. Yeah, so let's go open the student personal. Yeah, that could be the reason. So Ben Ross is here, and then the class is 9B, address is that new student created. I did not enter the student number, it automatically created the student number. As soon as it creates a new record, it assigns a new value. Right, let's go back here to test another function. So I'll go here, press the key, and then I want to go get the group report. All the students who have light, it ran it, and press the key, erases, go to the main menu. Actually, it just took a keystroke from me. When I said main menu, it says admin or student. I wanted to do student this time. I wanted to go here, O, and then 3, 4, 7, 8. One last time I'll get the student in trouble, and then I'll say press enter. That particular student, again, 6 o'clock, 2 minutes, 56 seconds, press Y to sign in or N to exit. I'll say Y, signed in, student signed in successfully. Then again, I'll go run my report, 1, 2, 3, 4, and press enter. It says student does not exist. Press space, O, I want to sign on, 1, 2, 3, 4, and press enter. Student does not exist. Press space, say report 3, 4, 7, 8, and press enter. It gives me all of those details. Here I couldn't be bothered to go and put the algorithm saying that if it is greater than 0, again, you can just copy and paste the top part of your codes here and then validate it, looking at if the student is only late. So, but here it gives the records, not late records. These are not the late records. These are the all sign-in records. Okay, if you see that, even if the student was not late, and even if the level is not more than 0, it's still showing. So those are the few things that you might want to go and change and improvise your system. Pressing space, pressing M. Anytime you wanted to exit the system, press escape. So that's the tutorial that was on data-driven application using the SQLite and using Python and also the Pygame functions module to go and complete a data-driven application. So you can also go and enter the DB. You can also look at your data tables and database itself using the DBBrowser application. So that's one of the things that you would be requiring in order to go and work with this kind of application. I am going to provide you with the link to the repository, to all the sprites that we used in the application, to the source codes, the different versions of the source codes, and at the same time, I'm also going to go and provide you with the database itself. So in the repository, I'll be creating one shared folder on the on OneDrive, and there will be one from my Google Drive, and I'll be providing you in the links below the description in this video, and then you can access it and you can start building your data-driven application. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to see some cool comments about your work or how you went through, or if you have any questions, pop it in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. All the best with your data-driven application. Thank you. Thanks for watching.